Well, this episode of Human Achievement is about to take a very weird turn. Very weird turn indeed. We're talking about wonderful Nobel Prize-y things, but
Yeah.
I want to tell you about a human achievement here on my cell
This
phone.
is going to go weird. I thought the last one was weird, right? And this is going even worse, isn't it?
This is going to go super weird.
This is-
All right, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm always ready.
In an achievement unlikely to ever be equaled,
Nadia Comaneci got a 10.
for the week of the 4th of April 1964,
Okay.
on the Billboard Hot 100, the Beatles
Oh, so
occupied,
it's not a Nobel Prize.
occupied the
achievement,
top 5 positions on the chart.
What year?
1964, all 5. In other words, number 5 was a Beatles song. This is the American Billboard Top 100. It's the American chart, really, of pop music. So number 5 was a Beatles song. Number 4 was a Beatles song. Number 3 was a Beatles song. Number 2 was a Beatles song. And number 1 was a Beatles song.
My word. All right. So now I have to do some thinking.
In the
'cause-
top 100, they actually, in that week, they had a total of 12 songs.
So the only thing I can think is that if that was ever true at any stage in the Beatles' history, it would be because of their final album and the performance on the roof of the studio and
Abbey is Abbey
and then
Road, eh?
because they hadn't performed live for years before that actual final performance. But I think 1964 might be too early for that. I mean,
Is that
I'm
where
literally-
you two got the idea from when they sang "Where the Streets Have No Name" and they sang their music videos on top of a recording studio? I think in LA.
So effectively, the Beatles went out in style, right? What they did was they had a last album where they wrote the music and then did a live show, all in kind of a few months. Like it was a 2-month period, and I think it was around about 1964. And there's a part of me that feels 1964 might be a year or two early, but it was around about that period. And then what they did was the classics that came out of that period, because they basically got stuck in a studio where they sat together and they wrote music, and they were told by their guy, listen, we're going live in front of a crowd. There's going to be a crowd there. You're going to be on top of this building, whatever. And you have to write 14 new songs to fill the time that we've got on the BBC. And they sat and they did it. They wrote all these songs. And the songs that came out of that were like The Long and Winding Road.
Wow.
Obla Di, Obla Da.
Goodness me.
Like there was a lot of like big Beatles. What's the Magic Hammer one about murder that was in amongst there?
Wow.
Yeah, there was a lot of very big kind of classic Beatles songs that came out of that writing session. And if that is the date of that writing session, I'm prepared to believe that for 1 week that thing smashed all the records and they got themselves to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm prepared to believe that. If I'm early, though, if it says the era of Sgt. Pepper's, then I don't believe it. So I have to just go, I have to go like, when did the Beatles break up? It's effectively the thing I have to ask my brain. I have to ask my brain to go and fetch the fact, when did the Beatles break up?
Right.
When did it all end? I'm prepared to say 1964. I'm prepared to say it. I'm prepared to. Yeah, all right. It's true.
Oh my goodness
It's true.
me. Well, I'm a massive fan. I've got an episode of a podcast coming out soonish, which I did with my daughter because I educated her on Beatles, and we shot it a while ago. It was
And then
great.
does she have to put up with all the crazy shit I have to put up with? Okay, all right.
Yeah, and she had to. During lockdown, I had to send. I sent
Zia.
her one.
That's
Yeah, I
her
sent
name,
her one.
Because Zia, call me. We'll start a support group.
Poor thing. I sent her a Beatles song every day, 50 for 5 weeks, 10 weeks, because it was every weekday.
Okay.
So she got the Beatles. So your chronology is they broke up in the 70s. So
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, so it would have been maybe 71 or 72.
So I'm
what
very
you're talking
early,
about.
is what you are.
So let me first tell you, you said it's true, and it is true. The fact is true.
I mean, I was
and-
true for entirely the wrong reason, but
Yeah.
we've had that happen before.
Yeah, April 1964, they occupied the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was in the the British Invasion. They called it the British Invasion. They'd gone to the Ed Sullivan Show, and they'd done their performance on the Ed Sullivan Show, and it was all their beautiful early teeny bopper stuff that hit top 5. Number 5 was.
I mean, now that I think about it, 1950s. Insanity that I even believed. Yeah, no, I'm deeply ashamed. Anyway.
Yeah. So number 5 was Please Please Me. Number 4, I Wanna Hold Your Hand. I wanna hold your
really
hand.
early Beatles. Yeah.
She Loves
What a
You was
fucking
number
word.
3. She Loves You. Yeah. Number 2 was well, shake it up, baby. Now shake it up, baby. Twist it. That was number 2. Twist and Shout. And number 1, Can't Buy Me Love. Love can't buy me.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was. I agree.
I
Unlikely
realized,
to ever be equaled. All 5 positions, plus another 7 Beatles songs on the top 100.
I knew that they were huge after the Ed Sullivan Show. I never realized, that never dawned on.
Very big.
Yeah, as I said, literally when you said that.
Human achievement, big.
Yeah, when you said that, and I'm entirely messed up their timeline. I literally could only think of that closing moment. That sort of, because they released 14 songs, of which I think 7 of them are like absolute classic Beatles.
Yeah. No,
kind of number
definitely.
one. And I was like, well, maybe at that point, going out the way they did. Yeah, it never occurred to me that they could have had all 5 top songs. Yeah, at the beginning of their career.
Yeah, and I talk about it in my ep with Zizi when I did the Beatles ep with Zizi, but she was like, I was like, there's not many bands I can, off the top of my head, name 50 songs from. There's not many artists, musical pop songs.
To be fair,
Beatles, I could just nail it.
To be
Boom,
fair,
Beatles.
There were about 12 bands that were around at the time. Like compared to now.
Yeah.
These guys are fighting for airtime with 10 million bands. Like back then, there were 12 bands, and they all knew each other, and they were mates, and they were releasing all of the music around the world. So I suppose it was a different era in many ways.
In fact, I don't want to go down a little rabbit hole here of pop music, but hey, this beer's great. So, but I think their second hit was Love Me Do was their first hit. They were talking about what to release as their second hits. And they eventually went with Please Please Me, which is great. But one of the options was How Do You Do What You Do To Me, which is from the other Liverpool band who sing the Liverpool song, You'll Never Walk Alone. Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Right.
So Jerry and the Pacemakers released How Do You Do What You Do To Me. And one of the options was let the Beatles do a version of that now. And Paul and John said, no, well, they'll never let us back in Liverpool if we do that. So we're not going to do that. So that was a good decision. So they went and released Please Please Me, or wrote Please Please Me as their second follow-up, because that was a big challenge back in those days. You land a hit because you release it.
And
what's your second one?
Second, yeah.
And Please Please Me was cool. And they didn't go with How Do You Do What You Do To Me, who were Jerry from Liverpool, Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Right, well, there you go. No, wonderful. And an entirely not Nobel Prize winning achievement. But as you say, again, one of those achievements that'll never be repeated, right?
No.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
No, there's now 10 million bands that are all vying for those spots. I think if you,
all 5
when you talk about like a band like Pink Floyd that were on the charts for 20 years with Dark Side of the Moon. For 20 years, they were legitimately uninterrupted on the charts. Yeah, that's never going to happen again.
No.
It's just impossible to happen. Like, it's just not, Anyway.